Welcome. Buckle up, boys and girls. It's going to be a fun next 2 hours. Welcome into the Top 5 Tuesday edition of Main Street Sports Today, where we are presented, as always, by our friends at the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Wade Neely here, Calvin White there. Our producer, as always, he's with us today, folks. There was rumblings behind the scenes that he might not be with us today, but producer Mark Rogers is here as well. Packed house, packed show, and excited to be with you guys for the next couple hours here on Main Street Media platforms. Calvin, good afternoon. How we doing?
I'm doing good. We've talked about it for the last couple of weeks, but we finally got some rain. Made for an interesting Friday a couple of days ago, but rain is in the forecast for most of the next week. So David's grass will hopefully be green by the end of the week, and hopefully that doesn't pose any more problems for our high school sports coverage.
Yeah, that'd be great, right? That's the perfect situation. Let it rain and let it maybe even storm early in the week, but kind of get everything cleared out by about Thursday so we can keep our weekend plans. That's kind of what we're hoping. And I'm with you, and I'm with David. I'm looking out my backyard window earlier today, and I'm just gazing. I'm like, grow, little grass, grow. I want to get one last trim in before things start dying off here because Calvin, as you know, you got to savor days, weeks, and maybe even a month like this because Tennessee doesn't do seasons very well. We get them for, maybe 2 weeks at a time, and then poof, it'll be 30 degrees. And we're like, where the heck did the fall temperatures go? So I don't know about you, but I'm going to savor this for the next little bit while we got it.
Yeah, and we always get seasons at the wrong time of the year. Like it'll be 75 degrees on Christmas Day, but it'll be 30 and snowing in the middle of March.
Yeah, it makes no sense, but that's maybe in a sick way why we kind of love it here. But that's outdoors. Indoors, we've got you guys covered for the next couple hours, as I mentioned. We got a big show today lined up, folks. Big old show lined up on this Top 5 Tuesday. At the end of the program, Calvin and I will give you, last week was, I'm going to whisper this, but sometimes college football slates aren't exactly the sexiest. They aren't the most glamorous. And sometimes if you are strategic, I'm going to be careful with this. It could get me in trouble with the loved ones. But if you're careful, you can plan some activities, and you're not really missing a whole lot, and you're also getting a little stuff done. So Calvin and I will give you some top 5 non-college football-related activities as we get into fall. There might even be a pumpkin patch reference later in the show. Coming up also, we'll get into the grab bag. We got a lot to talk about in the grab bag. Hoping we get some official SEC news. That'll make a lot more sense a little bit later. But if we don't get the official news, we have pretty much on good authority unofficial SEC scheduling news. So stick around for that. Also, we got some cool video that we want to show you as a beloved college football mascot made its return. I take that back. Made its debut last week. More on that later. Should be fun. Again, we've got some video to go along with that. Big NFL news coming out of both Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park and the Tennessee Titans, as well as the rest of the NFL after a blazing Monday Night Football game last night, Calvin. I'm showing a little love. Mom is from Michigan, so I've got the sweatshirt on hand to rep, but the Lions went into Baltimore and kind of took care of business last night.
Yeah, I believe second consecutive week that a Derrick Henry fumble is proved costly for the Ravens. Baltimore obviously still, I think a lot of people would agree, one of the top tier elite teams in the NFL. But 1-2 start up there in Baltimore, and Derrick Henry's had really good games, but they've been kind of caught in some bad situations where one mistake has cost them.
Absolutely. We'll break that down. We'll also get into some other stuff in the grab bag there. Still to come also in the second hour. It is Tuesday, so we'll catch up with our beloved friend, colleague, mentor, ally, compadre, the one and only Chip Walters. He's the MTSU Blue Raider voice. Homecoming did not go well for the Blue Raiders on Saturday, but Chip will tell us what's to come. They open up conference play this week, and he'll break things down there. Calvin and I will also, at the end of this first hour, talk a little Major League Baseball as that postseason picture starts to come into focus just a little better. Tell me which of these looks better, Calvin, first or second? first or second. We'll put on our postseason spectacles in that sense and tighten up that playoff picture there coming down the stretch. And also, still to come, we've got Blake Lovell, our good friend from Southeastern 16, who is going to talk about the big college basketball news that we briefly touched on yesterday, but we'll go into the shocking college basketball announcement. Calvin, you're a big college basketball guy, so I know the Bruce Pearl retirement news. Maybe even if it wasn't totally shocking, it still sent shock waves across the college basketball community yesterday.
Yeah, it was. The timing of it was shocking because there was a video I believe a couple weeks ago where Bruce Pearl said he had 4 or 5 years left on his contract and he didn't see himself coaching that long. I didn't know he meant 2 or 3 more weeks.
Yeah,
but this was something that in the next couple of years I think people were expecting, but not the next couple of weeks. And obviously, people are always skeptical of a situation like this where he immediately retires and then his son kind of gets to step in and take over the program and gets a 5-year contract. But we'll get into all that stuff with Blake, I'm sure, so he can kind of provide a little bit more insight on that situation down there in the plains.
Yeah, things that make you go, just a little bit. We'll have more on that again coming up in our next segment. But with all that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that's a look at our show. Big old show today lined up on this Top 5 Tuesday. Calvin and I are with you for the next 2 hours. So let's lock and load, boys and girls. Let's give the people what they want, Calvin. Let's give them yesterday's results. Let's give them tonight's schedule. And let's do all of that on the Rundown.
This is the Rundown.
To the Rundown we go, boys and girls. I'll cover your results for tonight, or excuse me, for last night. And we told you guys there was high school football on the docket last night. And I'm going to pick Calvin's brain a little bit more as the show continues. But high school football last night, it was Rossview 47, West Creek 29. Yes, high school football, Monday night football. Congrats to Rossview on a big win. Volleyball action. Columbia with a 3-0 win versus Marshall County. Forest picking up a 3-0 victory versus Columbia Academy. 3-0 was the score as Culleoka knocked off Mount Pleasant. Eagleville with a 3-1 victory versus Harpeth Hall. Hickman County 3, Hampshire nothing. Lewis County with a 3-1 win over Battle Creek. It was Middle Tennessee Christian 3, Riverdale zip. Zion Christian with a 3-0 win over Lighthouse Christian out of Antioch. Girls soccer from last night. It was Liberty Creek with a 3-2 victory over BGA. Pope John Paul II and Brentwood Academy played to a goalless draw. Antioch picking up a 2-0 win over Cane Ridge. Fairview defeating Creekwood 9-0. Lawrence County with a nice victory, 2-1 over Hardin County. Loretto with a big district win, 2-0 over Lewis County. Richland takes care of Marshall County last night, 8-1. And Hume Fogg and White House Heritage, no goals scored, but an entertaining game nonetheless, it sounds like. As entertaining as a goalless game could be. I tried, folks, to make that one seem a little glamorous. 0-0 was your final between those two teams there. MLB action from last night. The Braves defeating the Nationals 11-5. And Calvin and I teased it a moment ago. It was the Detroit Lions defeating the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore in Monday Night Football NFL style 38-30.
Looking at tonight's prep volleyball schedule, East Hamilton is hosting Siegel. And then we have Siegel at Cleveland. Not sure which of those is correct. But nonetheless, Siegel is playing tonight somewhere. Spring Hill's at Community. All of these are district matchups coming up. Moore County is at Santa Fe. Franklin Christian is at Columbia Academy. BGA at Providence Christian. Middle Tennessee Christian at Zion Christian. Giles County is at Battle Creek. Riverdale travels to Blackman. Columbia hosting Coffee County. Fayetteville hosting Culleoka. Portland travels to Gallatin. Summertown is at Loretto. Cascade is at Murfreesboro. Central Magnet. Mount Pleasant is at Perry County. Oakland at Rockvale. Warren County at Smyrna. Lebanon at Stewart's Creek. And Laverne is at White County. In girls soccer, Hunters Lane travels to Glencliff. Nashville Christian is at Clarksville Academy. Franklin Road Academy is at Columbia Academy. DCA is at Ezell Harding. University School of Nashville is at Goodpasture. Valor Collegiate travels to Lead Academy. Antioch is at Lawson. Ensworth at Lipscomb Academy. Hillsboro at McGavick. Middle Tennessee Christian is at Providence Christian. Stewart's Creek at Smyrna. Liberty Creek at Springfield. Murfreesboro Central Magnet is at Marshall County. Smith County hosting Greenbrier. West Creek hosting Kenwood. Giles County travels to Zion Christian. Dixon County is at Clarksville Northwest. Waverly travels to East Robertson. Portland is at Gallatin. Grace Christian out of Franklin is hosting the Webb School. Harpeth is hosting Cheatham County. Laverne hosts Lebanon. Cornersville travels to Lawrence County. Richland is at Lewis County. White House Heritage at Macon County. Sycamore hosting Creekwood. John Overton hosting Cane Ridge. Father Ryan travels to CPA. Watertown is at Cumberland County. And Davidson Academy is at Friendship Christian. Wade's going to close us out with the rest of tonight's high school volleyball matchups.
Yeah, get you a sip of water, big fella. That was a big stretch there I left you with there. My apologies on the schedule. We go to the back half, though. And again, 7 p.m. kickoffs tonight, girls soccer, as Christian County, Kentucky will be on the road at Clarksville. Spring Hill is traveling to Columbia. Beach is on the road at Green Hill. Merrill Hyde is at Hendersonville this evening. Brentwood traveling to Independence. It'll be Mount Juliet at KIPP Antioch Global. Fairview's on the road at Montgomery Central. Centennial will visit Page tonight at 7 p.m. Also tonight at 7, Franklin at Ravenwood. Riverdale traveling to Rockvale. Clarksville Northeast will be at Rossview. Blackman traveling to Siegel. Nolensville's on the road this evening at Summit. Station Camp with a visit to White House, and Cookeville is hitting the road for a trip to Wilson Central. MLB action. Both of the squads of fans on this show at least are in action. The Nationals and Braves get underway at 6:15. That game can be seen on FanDuel Sports South. If you stay up late and you have MLB.TV, you can watch the Astros, who are at the Athletics. First pitch there comes your way at 9:05. More on the WNBA in a second, but for now, schedule-wise, 2 playoff games, 2 playoff series continuing at 6:30 and 8:30 tonight on ESPN. First up is Phoenix at Minnesota, and then Indiana at Vegas, again following at 8:30. 6:30, 8:30 your times. ESPN your channel, a couple of WNBA playoff series. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of your Tuesday schedule. Those were your Monday results. That concludes today's rundown. Top story, as always, is brought to you by the fine folks over at Piggly Wiggly at Neely's Mill in Columbia. Open from 11 a.m. until 6 p.m. Be sure and check them out for your delicious daily deli lunch options, where they also offer hand-cut meats, and everything is cost plus 10 at the cash register. Once again, Piggly Wiggly, Neely's Mill in Columbia, presenting you your top story. Calvin, we go to the coaching carousel for today's top story. And I was going to ask you to pick a number 1 or 2. Give me 1 or give me 2. We'll start this thing off right.
For top story?
Yeah, just pick a number 1 or 2, because we got 2 of them, partner.
Let's pick 1. If they line up the way I think they do, 1 will be the more interesting discussion.
Okay, well, we'll go 1, and depending on your answer, I guess. But just one season after winning a WNBA championship, and Mo and I talked about the WNBA and their flurry of coaching searches and their coaches getting fired. The New York Liberty, again, one season after winning the championship, have let go of Coach Sandy Brondello. Franchise making that announcement Tuesday. They will not renew her contract. She learned Tuesday morning that she would not be retained as the head coach. She's been with the team since 2022. She leaves as the franchise's winningest head coach and the lone coach to lead them again to a WNBA championship, which occurred around this same time last year. They went to consecutive championships, but they had never won it all until that victory last year over the Lynx. Calvin, simple question. What's going on here? Is one year, when we talk about short leashes, this is as short as it gets, partner. They just hoisted the title this time last year.
Yeah, I mean, in today's topic of sports discussion, I think no matter what sport you're talking about, everybody only cares about what have you done for me lately. But I mean, what she's done for the Liberty lately is win the WNBA championship. And I guess that says something about the Liberty, that she was the coach for 4 seasons and she's the winningest coach in franchise history. But I mean, one season after winning the title is kind of nuts. I'm reading this story here from The Athletic. They started 9-0, but finished 18-17 with 18 different starting lineups. Um, but I mean, having all those injuries and all that type of stuff and still making the playoffs, um, it just doesn't make sense that a year after winning the championship and still making the playoffs this year with all those injuries from some of your top players, like Jonquel Jones and Breanna Stewart. Um, it's kind of crazy that she's looking for a new job now.
Yeah, it feels a bit odd, and I'm sure more will probably come out in the weeks and months to come. But this initially on its surface feels like classic, something's up, or we don't know the whole story, because you're right. It wasn't as if the franchise just absolutely tanked and was awful this year. Yes, they didn't kind of maybe meet quote-unquote expectations, but you just mentioned a couple of key injuries there. They also had some people leave in the offseason. So, I mean, feels like something's up. I'm sure more will be revealed, but at least a very high-profile WNBA coach and franchise have decided to part ways. This comes on the heels. 24 hours ago, we told you guys that the Seattle Storm were the first to enter the head coaching market, as they did not renew the contract of Noelle Quinn. For what it's worth, Portland Fire and Toronto Tempo are also joining the league next season, so they got to look for head coaches. So Brondello, if she wants to continue coaching, she's also coached a lot at the international level with Australia. Maybe she says, you know what, I've had enough of WNBA life. Maybe she kind of pursues other endeavors. So more on that later, obviously, as that unfolds. Another story that's unfolding as we speak, Calvin. Mo and I talked about it on the show yesterday, and Mo kind of speculated how hot was the seat for Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State. Blazing hot is the answer, because he has been relieved of his duties, ending a 21-year head coaching tenure. That does come. It does come after two of his most embarrassing losses, perhaps. They got beat 2 weeks ago by Oregon 69-3, the most lopsided ever under head coach Mike Gundy. And then just last Friday night, they lost at home to Tulsa 19-12. Calvin, are you shocked by the news that Gundy is out today?
No, I'm not shocked at all. And, he's an Oklahoma State diehard, played there. He's the second longest tenured Division I college football coach behind Kirk Ferentz at Iowa. But, you mentioned it, the way they started the year, and even the last couple of years, they've kind of been treading water with not having that much success. And, that's a program that, has some history behind it. Barry Sanders obviously had some really good years when he was there. It's a historic football program, and especially with the way the last couple of years have gone, and, losing by 66 to Oregon. And then, even week one, they not barely, but they only beat UT Martin by 20. And, it's something that everybody kind of knew was coming, and it's kind of ironic because after they lost on Saturday, somebody asked Mike Gundy if he expected to be the coach next year, and he said yes. But out of a job after week 3. That is, 20 years at one place, and now he's looking for a job.
Yeah, and I'll be fascinated to see. Mike Gundy kind of strikes me as the guy. Number one, I think he'd be brilliant in media if he decided to go that route. He just seems like a shoe-in if he, again, wanted to pursue that. But he also kind of strikes me as the guy that, hey, I was at my alma mater for 20-plus years. Do I really want to go out and just kind of start all over again? I would not be shocked if, maybe he just kind of wanders in the wilderness and enjoys his later years outside of football. I would not be shocked if he does either one of those. But what you can kind of be shocked by, and maybe in a bad way here, OK State went 3-9 last year, but they went winless in Big 12 action. They are trending very much in that same direction again this year. And also, Calvin, one final point to think about is while they are kind of struggling, failing, floundering, whatever term you want to use, you got teams kind of in the last 2 or 3 seasons. Texas Tech has come roaring back to life. West Virginia, we laughed at them a couple weeks ago, but they're showing a little backbone under Rich Rod. Schools like Kansas and Houston seemingly rejuvenated. So it is a very crowded Big 12, and OK State is not in a great position. I made the comment yesterday with Mo that not only are they losing games, they're losing interest, and they're kind of toiling in mediocrity, and that, if nothing else, will send you packing. So we'll see what's next for Mike Gundy as, again, parting ways after 21 seasons. So a double dose of coaching news there with our WNBA firing, but also our OK State firing. But if you thought we were done discussing coaching moves, you got another thing coming, because on the other side of this timeout, we're going to talk with our good friend from Southeastern 16, Blake Lovell. He's going to break down the big news in college basketball yesterday. And it really goes beyond college basketball. If you go to the grocery store or you ask your grandmother who Bruce Pearl is, there's a pretty good shot she's going to know. And that's the type of shockwaves that come across the college basketball landscape. And so Blake is going to join us to break things down. We'll take a quick timeout. When we come back, we'll get into some NCAA hoop discussion with our good friend Blake Lovell from Southeastern 16. Calvin and I are back right after this here on Main Street Sports Today.
Closer. All new Sportsbook, the latest gaming machines, live horse racing, and more. The Mid Gaming Hall, Kentucky Downs. Winning just got closer.
Deep in a forest at Nashville Zoo, new creatures here for you to view. Phantoms graced in black and white swing high in trees of dappled light. In rocky crags, tall and steep, small antelopes with nimble feet. A wise old man with beard of white, a sentry perched on stony height. Amidst it all, a hunter lies, with coat of gold and steely eyes. A new adventure just for you. Leopard Forest at Nashville Zoo. Open now.
Busy bee, yeah, busy bee. If you need...
Hold on, y'all, hold on. I need to make a call. Hey, this is Brianna with Busy Bee. I'm giving you a call to let you know your technician is on his way.
833.
Oh, busy bee. Guys, not yet. Not yet.
Busy bee, oh,
Now
busy
I'm ready,
bee.
guys.
Call 775-7833.
Custom Stone Handlers supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with Riverstone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe the measure of any person or company is how you treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStoneHandlers.com.
We are back, boys and girls, here as hour number one of Main Street Sports Today rolls right along. Big show lined up today. That is Calvin White. I'm Wade Neely. Our producer, as always, the one and only Mark Rogers. We told you guys that after this quick timeout, our good friend Blake Lovell of Southeastern 16 would join us. Mark, if we could, let's bring Blake in. We welcome in Blake. First of all, Blake, good to see you. A little earlier in the calendar year than sometimes we have our conversations, but we're delighted to have you nonetheless.
Yes, good to talk to you guys. I think it's a noteworthy topic worth discussing, as you mentioned. A bit of a sort of bombshell news for a lot of people. But, yeah, it's college basketball not that far away now, which makes the timing of this very interesting too. So
Absolutely. And, Blake, before we go any further, last night I reached out to you and said, hey, could you come on the show and talk Bruce Pearl? And I started wondering about that. How many texts did you get yesterday from folks just saying, what the heck has happened? Bruce Pearl announcing he will retire kind of abruptly and shockingly at Auburn.
Yeah, quite a few. And some of them were, wait a minute, you knew this, didn't you? Because a week ago we did a show for our members over at Southeastern 16, and someone asked the question. They said, who's going to retire first, Bruce Pearl or Rick Barnes? And so I said pretty emphatically, it's going to be Bruce Pearl, because I think that if you looked at the state of the situation and kind of the expectation of what maybe that whole switch and transition could look like for him, it just felt like to me he was much closer to calling it quits than Rick Barnes was, and which is wild, right? Because Rick Barnes is, I don't remember the exact how many years older he is than Bruce, but yeah, so I know that kind of surprised a lot of people, and I was like, look, when I said I thought he would retire before Rick, I didn't think it was going to be now. I thought it would be after this season, but I'm not shocked by it, but nonetheless, the timing, as I said, is just something where a lot of people are like, why now? But then when you start to connect the dots, I think there's a lot of reasons it makes sense to do it now for him. So,
with that being said, Blake, help us connect some of those dots. You know, the immediate talking point is going to be that his son, Stephen Pearl, is going to take over on a 5-year deal.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, some people won't like that on the outside. They'll say, well, this was just, you know, a complete setup to where you do it now because there's kind of no other choice, right? Auburn's not going to go out and have a coaching search towards the end of September when the season starts the first week of November. And so I think a lot of people may look at it and say, well, come on, everybody knew that this is why he's doing it now. But I don't know that that's anything wrong with that, to be honest with you. I think it's like we all kind of, as we watch this play out over the past couple of years, I think it was always sort of set up to when Bruce decided he was going to retire, Steven was going to get an opportunity. And I think that's why, you know, he's been with him as long as he has in terms of just the coaching aspect of things. And I think as you started to see them, you know, kind of maneuver things a certain way to where, look, Steven's a lot more active and being much more vocal in terms of, you know, the game plan, if you will. Like, you can see him very engaged with all that. And I think if you are looking at it from Bruce Pearl's perspective and also Auburn's perspective, right? Because I think of it this way. There are some people who are going to be like, well, come on, it doesn't give Auburn a chance, you know, because they could have went out and hired somebody that's won, you know, multiple, gotten the Final Fours and won a national championship or all this other stuff. But my thinking is, if Bruce Pearl retires after the season, then what happens in this era? All of a sudden, there is a flood coming of people who are trying to take every single player that you have. It hurts your recruiting. It does all of those things. And it leads you into an offseason of nothing but unknowns. But now, the way I see it, how long did they know about this? Who knows? But my guess is it wasn't just something that popped up last week. They've probably been preparing, whether it's in their practices, whether it's in, you know, kind of their off-season workouts, which they just started official practice this week. They've probably known that this is how it's going to look. So I think they've gotten the current roster acclimated to it and all of that. And so for me, if you were Bruce Pearl and you wanted your son to have an opportunity, someone who has worked side by side with you, multiple Final Fours, this made the most sense in the world. And I can't say I blame the guy for doing it that way, given what he did for Auburn basketball.
Blake, you know, obviously it's a big talking point because Stephen Pearl is Bruce Pearl's son, but, you know, there's nothing that anybody can do about it at this point. He's going to be the coach. But, you know, this was a guy that was a pharmaceutical sales rep for a couple of years before he joined his dad's staff at Auburn. Now, obviously, he's worked his way up through the coaching ranks at Auburn. But just in terms of, you know, experience, how do you think that Stephen Pearl will kind of transition into a head coach not having any Division I head coaching experience before?
Yeah, it's a great question. And for everything I said about how the timing made sense for them, there is absolutely no guarantee that this is going to work at all. And I think that's where, if you're going to play the pessimistic side of it for Auburn fans, you're going to look at this and say, all right, maybe this year we will certainly have a good idea of how this works without Bruce Pearl on the sidelines. But really, the biggest thing you're going to see, and maybe say, all right, this is where we learn the most, is going to be after this season, for every reason that I just mentioned about what happens with recruiting, what happens with the roster, what about the NIL? Are the boosters, who, as we know, sometimes can be a little fickle at college schools, are they going to be like, you know, I put my money in here when Bruce was there, but this is going to look a little bit different. So it's all those things. But I think that's where it is, and people were comparing it yesterday, right? It's like the Nick Saban thing, where, all right, Saban's stepping down, but he's still going to be the ambassador, right? And some people have been like, well, how's that worked out? Well, that's sort of a different situation where you're going with someone who Nick Saban basically had no association with. You're hiring Kalen DeBoer as a head coach versus Bruce Pearl and his son, who, again, has been there. He just has not been in this chair. And it's completely different when you are in that spot. And so I think from that perspective and the way Auburn has kind of structured their staff in recent years, you guys know how this works. Like basketball now, we're kind of like football. There's an offensive coordinator, there's a defensive coordinator. There are guys who play much different roles on that staff. They have an offensive guru in Mike Burgermaster. Stephen Pearl has been a big influence, I think, for them on the defensive side. And so I think you're going to see some of those kind of tiny things play out pretty early as to how they're able to navigate some of those things without Bruce there. But, ultimately, I think the thing that probably I have the biggest question about is just the in-game management. It's the situations of what is Stephen Pearl doing with a minute to go and your team's down 3 in a must-win game versus what Bruce Pearl did. And those are the things, again, it's different to be in that situation as an assistant coach versus a head coach. But I think he's got a good enough sort of consistent staff around him, guys who have been there. It's a group effort, right? And I think Bruce Pearl would tell you, it's like, hey, I didn't just have all this success by myself. It was always the group effort. He's still going to have that group around him. Bruce won't be on the sidelines to be able to help him with that. But I think they've given him every chance to succeed. Now, whether that happens or not, as you said, someone with no head coaching experience was in a completely different field less than a decade ago. That remains to be seen.
And then you mentioned how the roster, how Auburn has probably known about this for a while, and they've kind of been trying to get acclimated to Stephen Pearl being the head coach. Now, obviously, since Bruce Pearl is gone now, any of those players are going to have 30 days to, hit the portal and try to find somewhere else to land. With it being this close to the start of the season, do you see a scenario where some of those guys are trying to leave? And even if they do try to leave, is there a scenario where somebody can pick them up still with it being this close to the start of the season?
And that's why I think the timing, too, is best for how this played out for Auburn, because I don't know how many of those guys are going to just say, all right, see you later, because I think you're not just going to go walk onto campus somewhere and be ready to play in November. It's going to be something where and this is where you guys know the rules have changed so much. Sometimes I get confused. I'm like, I would think at the earliest some of these guys would be able to play, in the spring maybe, something like that. It's not an immediate thing. And so I don't know how many of those guys are going to just say, all right, I'm out of here now. The question is if that number elsewhere gets high enough to where there are going to be plenty of people out there that would love to come in and just raid Auburn's roster. And will that be something that they can do? My guess is, would I be surprised if one or two of these guys decide to go elsewhere? No, I wouldn't. But I think it's going to come at a cost in terms of when you can actually play that entire process, which is no guarantee that you're going to be able to just all of a sudden go from here to there and there be no kind of complications along the way or anything like that. I think that's very unique this time of year. And so I would think that, once again, these guys have been together. They've played together this offseason. They've gone through all the workouts. They've started practice now. They will have every opportunity to transfer. But I just think that probably, based on how they did this, you're looking at what I would expect is a very limited number. And anyone who does, do I think it's going to be one of their starting 5 or anything like that? I'd be shocked if it is.
Blake, talking with Blake Lovell from the Southeastern 16 about the big bombshell yesterday, Bruce Pearl officially announcing his retirement. And Blake, 2 things there. Number one that jumped out to me. First and foremost, I just got to simply ask, because I haven't checked in on my Auburn fans in my life, how do they feel about this? I've heard from a lot of other SEC fans who have kind of, taken their shots at Stephen Pearl and his obvious lack of coaching pedigree. But how does Auburn Nation feel about this in your mind?
Yeah, I think probably most Auburn fans I've seen have just been, it's more of an appreciation type thing. Sure, it's not what you wanted going into the season, but I think it's simply look at where we are now versus where we were when Bruce Pearl was not the head coach, going back over a decade now, to where it was a program that, quite frankly, had become the worst, not just in the SEC, it was one of the worst power conference basketball programs out there. And to fast forward a decade later and say you're going to have 2 Final Fours, you're going to have, I think it's like 4, 5, 6, 25 or more win seasons, something like that. And remember, I think people forget, too, how good they were in 2020 when the tournament got canceled. Like, it's one of those where they would have had every opportunity to potentially make another Final Four that year. And so I think when you look at it from that standpoint, a lot of Auburn fans are able to step back and kind of see that, okay, hey, we may not everyone is going to completely agree with the timing and how they went about doing this maybe. But they're also going to be like, if there's anyone that's earned that, it's probably Bruce Pearl, based on everything he's done for the program, because he did. He made it a national power. They did things last year historically that have not ever been done before in college basketball, with how dominant they were throughout last season. And I felt like every single day I was putting out a new stat of how, this actually has never been done before.
Yeah.
And so you just kept going and going, and knowing that, too, I think, we talk about the timing, it was going to be impossible for them to replicate this season what they did last season. It's a new team, pretty much everyone except for Jahad Pettiford. And I think that was something, too, where if you looked at it from Bruce Pearl's lens here, man, it's hard to come back from that. That was a special team. That's probably a once-in-a-coaching career type team that they had last year. And so I think Auburn fans kind of understand that. I think they also had a pretty good idea that this was coming, maybe not as soon as it did. But I think that probably I'd say the majority of Auburn fans that I've talked to, they're like, we knew this was going to happen probably the next year or two. Sure, we weren't exactly expecting it to be this September, though.
Blake, obviously there is the element of the unknown there with Stephen Pearl, but kind of my mind was wondering, maybe for the first time in Auburn's history, they had a chance, if you play out the string with Bruce Pearl, that is, throughout this whole season, you could have really been a top-tier program that attracts a real viable candidate for the first time maybe ever again in that program's history. That's the part that has me just kind of wondering, and that's what makes this situation so compelling, is because Stephen Pearl could go out and win 25, 30 games this year, and everybody's like, yeah, it's a great hire, but we just kind of don't know, and there's always going to be that what-if factor, it feels like, with this transition here.
Yeah, and giving him a 5-year contract. A lot of people were asking yesterday, they were like, is that too high of a number? Is that normal? And I'm like, it's not normal in this era, right? I mean, it's like, I don't see a lot of contracts that are signed for a new coach that are 2 or 3 years anymore. It's just not the case, because you want to do that for recruiting. You want to say, all right, we got this guy locked in for more than one recruiting cycle, basically, and now get a 10-year contract as many years some of these guys are playing. So, the Diego Pavia effect, right? This guy could be playing there, give the coach a 7-year contract. But I think it's one of those where, to me, you're kind of looking at it from that standpoint where it's, and I had to catch myself last week when we were having this discussion. I'm like, well, yeah, this is going to be a very attractive job. Yeah. And then my colleague Max is like, well, yeah, they're just going to give it to Steven, aren't they? I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. They are just probably going to give it to Steven whenever Bruce decides to retire. And so it is something where, you look at it, the value of this job has been raised substantially since Bruce Pearl was there. And I'd argue, this has really been a top 10 program in the country over the past several years. And so it is going to be, and I think that's where, like, if you do have a certain percentage of Auburn fans who are looking at this and saying, I see all the reasons why this isn't going to work. Because, look, if Stephen Pearl winds up being one of the greatest coaches in the SEC, he would be a complete outlier because it just doesn't usually work in these kind of scenarios. We've seen this so many times, and I'm sure there's multiple examples I could pull up that I'm just forgetting off the top of my mind, but we've seen this many times. And it's going to be a challenge for this to be able to be as effective. But I do think they're surrounding him with the resources to be successful. But, yeah, it is something where if you made a short list and we're like, if Auburn just went out and made a hire now, who would be on it? Mm-hmm. I think it would surprise people just how big some of those names were based on the appeal of this Auburn job, although you would also have some coaches say, I want absolutely no part of that, having to follow someone like Bruce Pearl at Auburn, because it does kind of feel like a very tough situation to do.
Like before Bruce Pearl kind of debunked it yesterday in his tribute or goodbye video he put out, there was a lot of rumors that, the timing of this kind of made sense for Bruce Pearl to retire and, pursue that career in politics that he had kind of been talking about over the last couple of months. But, in his tribute video or goodbye video, he kind of talked about how he was going to move into what appears to be an administrative role at Auburn. Just what do you think that role looks like for him and the Auburn athletic department as a whole?
Yeah, and I think that's where having someone like him being able to promote your athletic department, I mean, he is the absolute definition of what you would want, and that's why he had so much success over the years, is he was just able to reinvigorate programs every single time, just with the charisma and sort of the aura that he brings to the table. And I have a feeling that's the exact same thing they'll be tasking him to do this time around. And, you know, it is something where having Bruce Pearl as kind of the face of your athletics, I mean, who else would it be there, right? And it's like, and some people were joking yesterday. They're like, you know, could be Hugh Freeze until the fans turn on him tomorrow. And then the next day they're going to turn back and be okay with him. And, like, that's been a very sort of back and forth relationship, as we know. But this is something where he is universally loved there. And so I think they will use him in all those ways just to keep promoting the growth of Auburn athletics, you know, in multiple sports. But also having him still connected to the basketball program is going to do wonders. And, you know, I know what he said yesterday in the video about, hey, everybody thought I was going to, you know, run for the Senate and it would have required me to leave Auburn and all that. But do I still think there is a great chance that Bruce Pearl will eventually make his way into politics? Yes. I just think that we have to remember, too, right? He's 65 years old. I mean, I think there is still a great chance that he will enter into that realm. We all know. I mean, he's certainly been outspoken about it. And so, but for now, I think this is probably something where how many years is he the ambassador for Auburn athletics? Don't exactly know. But at least now as a starting point, again, if you're Auburn, I don't think you could ask for anything more, because if he had just completely walked away and went out and done something else and you had that divide where it's like, here's Stephen Pearl on an island, and he doesn't have that support of a Bruce Pearl there all the time, that could have not worked out very well, I think, at the start.
Yeah, if nothing else, it feels like, he's been thrown a little bit of a lifeline, and, you know, Stephen's going to be able to chart some unfamiliar waters a little safer, knowing that Bruce is around. I don't know if media's in his future, obviously, but that seems like a shoe-in. And Blake, I know you're a wrestling guy too. I can see him. He could be a full-blown baby face or heel if you wanted to get into it with him there. So I'm fascinated by how this plays out. And yes, I am curious. I don't think we maybe have heard the last of the Bruce Pearl political talk. I will not be shocked whatever he decides to do, whether that's continue at Auburn, maybe politics, or even media. Blake, before we get you out of here, we do want to ask you, we want to pick your brain a little bit about college football. And Calvin and I are MTSU grads, so you're not allowed to make any Austin Peay jokes to us, your beloved alma mater. So keep those to a minimum. But what else, as we enter maybe the biggest college football weekend in maybe history, it is going to be a mammoth slate this weekend. What's got your eye?
Well, I mean, look, I was joking about Diego Pavi earlier, and I know Vanderbilt, plays Utah State, and they're 3 touchdown favorites. But I think it's like, you look at the entire SEC landscape this weekend, and you're looking at all these big kind of powerhouse type games, and yet I'm still looking at Vanderbilt. Like, I mean, are they one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the SEC? Like, I mean, because we were looking up the stats earlier, like, and I'm like, hey, they haven't played the exact same schedule as everybody else and all this to this point, but they have simply dominated every single game they've played in. Really after what was a bit of a struggle in the first half against Virginia Tech, when then they just came out and just blew the doors off. I just keep looking, and I'm like, and so Chris Lee and I were doing our preview video for that game today, and we started talking, and I'm just like, Chris, I feel like we're trying to talk ourselves out of how good Vanderbilt is, because we've been around Vanderbilt for so long, and we're like, this is where everything, like, they're going to lose this game, right? They're going to lose to Utah State. But I'm like, this is completely different. And I think it's the vibe and it's everything. Like, he was bringing up, the SEC Network last week was already looking ahead to Vanderbilt and Alabama. When has that ever happened?
Yeah.
Right? And so I think this week coming out of it, yes, like, okay, what happens with Georgia and Alabama? Tennessee going to Mississippi State, I think is so fascinating, because to me, that's the kind of game I still think Tennessee can win, even though I think everyone's on Mississippi State. I still think LSU can go on the road and beat Ole Miss, even though it seems like everybody's on Ole Miss winning at home, because we're just naturally going to, look at the home team and say, all right, when in doubt, take them. But how do, like, the Road Warriors wrestling tie in there, how do they fare this week? And can those teams go out and get wins? But I also think it's like, if Vanderbilt just comes out and beat Utah State by 4 touchdowns or something, and you're starting to look ahead and really being like, hey, let's just stop looking at this team as though they're just a team that's there in the middle and they've won their games so far and all that. They may legitimately be one of the 3 to 5 best teams in this conference, and I just think that that's going to continue to be one of the biggest stories for me, just to see how it plays out from here. We may not learn as much this week as we are on these other powerhouse SEC games, but I just can't take my eye off of what they've done to this point.
I'm with you, Blake, and yeah, there's that sense of you'll breathe a heavy sigh of relief if and when you're a Vanderbilt fan after you get by Utah State, because now you can finally look ahead toward what is – it ain't just Alabama, as you well know. I mean, you got LSU, Missouri, and Texas all lurking behind. So if the Commodores can snag a couple wins out of there, they're in prime position to make some damage. Blake, real quick before we get you out of here, one other game kind of off the grid in SEC land. Does Arkansas end Notre Dame's playoff hopes this weekend?
I will never, with any confidence, say yes when it comes to Arkansas right now.
I've gotten burned on them 2 weeks in a row.
I mean, it's like I feel like they just keep finding creative ways to lose. And, that's why, too. People were talking about Ole Miss and all this. I'm like, hey, Ole Miss has been good, but they should have lost to Arkansas. And I know we can play the would-have, should-have game and all this other stuff, but, like, Arkansas should have 2 more wins than they do right now, and we'd probably be talking about them in terms of, hey, here's another one of these teams where don't look now, but they may sneak up and be, one of the top-tier teams in the SEC, but they just keep finding ways to lose. And so Taylor Green is so good. But, man, can they stop anybody? I don't know. Notre Dame, like you said, I mean, they are about as desperate as it gets. But I heard someone say that earlier, and I'm like, isn't Arkansas desperate too? I mean, Sam Pittman's desperate. I can tell you that because this is the kind of game where if Notre Dame comes in there and wins by 2 touchdowns, there is all potential confidence is gone at that point. Not if it hasn't already after that Memphis game. But I'm like, this is one where, like, I don't want to say it's the same, but it feels like the Tennessee game from last year, where it's like this is the one where it's early still. Your season's not completely toast, but if you were to come out, win a game like this, then it goes from, all right, Sam Pittman, you're gone, to, so you're telling me there's a chance that we're about to turn this thing around, right? I don't think Notre Dame is – I think there's absolutely a chance Arkansas wins this game, but there is no confidence that I have to pick them because – I just think that, again, when it comes to these late game situations, they have quite literally, kind of fumbled them away here in some of these games. So
I'm about in the same boat. I'll believe it when I see it with Arkansas, and I don't know that we'll see it this week. But hoping that's about as good of an appetizer at 11 a.m. on ABC as you could get for the rest of the day. That's the good stuff from Blake Lovell. We bring him on to talk Bruce Pearl, and he's still breaking down college football with us. That's why he's the best in the biz. Blake Lovell, we thank you as always. Basketball season right around the corner. We undoubtedly will be reaching back out to you again, my friend.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much again to Blake Lovell of the Southeastern 16 for joining us, talking all things. We got a little college basketball. We got a little college football. We even snuck in some wrestling references on the spot there. So, Calvin, a lot to unpack there. I do love what Blake said, though, about Bruce Pearl and the whole kind of lingering around. Because if he had just completely walked away, I was kind of floored by the 5-year deal aspect of this, I will admit, from Steven. But if Bruce is going to be around, it's kind of like, okay, do you really want to fire him so quickly if Bruce is kind of still around? Because he could almost threaten to take his ball and go home, too, at that point. So they've kind of set this up about as well as you possibly could, it feels like.
Yeah, and if I'm Stephen Pearl, I'm probably really glad that they kind of kept Dad around to be kind of an outlet. If things do start going wrong, he can kind of, he can just go around the corner in the office and be like, hey, he doesn't have to be like, hey, Bruce Pearl. He can be like, hey, Dad, can you help me out a little bit with this? Can I have some quick advice on how to avoid, losing by 1 million in this gauntlet of a basketball conference now? But I think it's a good situation for Auburn as a whole and Bruce and Stephen Pearl. Obviously, Stephen Pearl with no Division I head coaching experience is probably, not going to be, well, I say probably not, but who knows if he'll be an instant success. If he is an instant success, then it's probably the biggest story in college basketball in the early part of the season.
And that's the crazy thing, right? I mean, yes, as Blake said, their roster is not going to be as slam-packed as it was, no Janai Brooms walking around campus at the moment, but not out of the realm of possibility. And in a sport where the tournament kind of dictates a lot of your perception, maybe they make a run, and yeah, everybody's like, holy smokes, this was a great hire. But that will remain to be seen as we continue. Calvin and I are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will close up the first hour. We'll do a little MLB discussion. We'll give you an update on the Braves. We'll give you an update on the Astros. We'll even give you an update on all other things across Major League Baseball as the postseason picture continues to come into focus here over the next 6 days or so. All that and more coming your way as we close out hour number 1. Heading up next right here on Main Street Sports Today, where we are presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia.
Columbia Power and Water Systems is dedicated to bringing our customers reliable, local service. Whether you're turning on a light switch, your faucet, or streaming on TV, our dedicated team members from here in Murray County work every day to keep you on. If you need us, call us 931-388-4833 or visit cpws.com. CPWS, local service, local support.
Zion Christian Academy at zioneagles.org or 931-388-7531. You can schedule your appointment to visit their beautiful campus. Again, zioneagles.org or 931-7531 to schedule your visit today.
On this day in Braves history, as I pull up my run of show here, on this day in Braves history, you got to go back to September 23rd, 1950. 1950, folks. That was the year my dad was born, so you know it was a good year. But also on this day in Braves history, the Braves' Johnny Sain fails in his attempt to win a 20th game. However, he does hit his first Major League home run, a dinger off of Larry Jansen, a 4-3 loss to the visiting Giants with 2 outs in the 10th. Sam Jethro loses Don Muller's fly ball in the sun, and then Muller legs out a triple. Hank Thompson's single wins it for Jansen. A Saturday crowd of 5,000, this is mind-blowing, 5,535. Watch the Braves drop out of the second place in the NL there, while the Giants move within 3 games of the Phillies. That was this day in Braves history. There was a lot of news and nuggets on the site I pulled these from, Calvin, but I just like to go back down memory lane, mainly because I've never heard of some of these players. I'm unfamiliar with the game of Johnny Sain and Larry Jansen, but we got some folks that tune into the show that are probably nodding their head, saying, "Yeah, I remember. He was a good ball player back then." So that was this day in Braves history, circa 1950. Let's rewind it a little more recently, however, Calvin. Go back to last night, and as we kind of play out the string of this Atlanta Braves season, Mo is glued. He mentioned it on the show yesterday. He wasn't even watching the Titans or any NFL on Sunday, and I kind of chuckled because he said he's glued to watching the Braves, who were on a heater. They continue to take names with whoever's on their schedule, at least down the stretch. They beat the Nationals last night 11-5, Calvin.
Yeah, and I saw this last night, and I pulled it up so I could reference it. Saw this last night. The Braves over their last 9 games, they haven't lost, they haven't committed an error, they haven't scored fewer than 5 runs, and they haven't allowed more than 5 runs. No other team in Major League history has done that over a 9-game span, and we're getting that out of the 4th place team in the National League East in the last week and a half of the season. But we kind of talked about a couple weeks ago how the Braves, they were mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, but they could kind of play spoiler for some of those other teams. They kind of did that for the Tigers a little bit, kind of helped the Guardians get back in that division race. Now the Guardians are only a game back to the Tigers.
100%, and that's why I mentioned with Mo yesterday. It kind of stinks for the Braves. They're looking around, and they got the Nationals and the Pirates to close, and they're like, hey, who's up next? We want somebody that we could really do some damage to, but they've already done enough, as you mentioned, going to Detroit and winning those games. Teams will be back at it tonight, Braves and Nationals. That was a good pitching matchup, despite the final score last night on paper, as Chris Sale got the win. Mackenzie Gore, who has an awful win-loss record, but has been pitching pretty well in terms of strikeouts, at least, this season for the Nationals. Lord and Waldrop will go tonight. That's a producer Mark reference there with Lord on the mound tonight, I suppose. But Hudson Waldrop will go for the Bravos with 5-1 record, 3.04 ERA. That's on one side of town, Calvin. On the other side of the country, as a matter of fact, the Astros are at the Athletics. I didn't necessarily want or hope to find myself having to tune in to Astros and Athletics at the end of the regular season in any meaningful capacity. But here we are. Houston desperate for a win because the division has pretty much gone bye-bye. But as you just mentioned a moment ago, they got another team to contend with. The Guardians cannot stop winning baseball games. Well, they did lose their last time out, but prior to that, they'd won 9 in a row. They're 9-1 in their last 10. And the Guardians and the Astros, throw in the Tigers. It's a 3-team race, basically gunning for 2 spots, one of which is going to be the AL Central, and the other will be the final AL wildcard berth.
Yeah, and we've talked about this division race over the last couple of weeks. For a long while there, it didn't seem like anybody wanted to take control of the AL West, but Mariners have been playing well over the last couple of weeks, and the Astros have been kind of slipping. Mariners have built up a 3-game lead over in that division. And obviously, if Cleveland manages to overtake Detroit for the AL Central, then that's just another dominant team in Detroit that Houston's going to have to compete for one of those final wild card spots with.
Yeah, it is not looking good. Houston needs desperately to get a win. And, I mentioned it on the show yesterday. They were up 7 games, I think it was, on July the 6th. And they have seen that lead squander. And they didn't do themselves any favors, but the Mariners kind of didn't take it until this past weekend. They were kind of just getting by on Seattle, not doing a whole lot. But now that we've reached this spot, here we are. So it'll be interesting. Again, I did not find myself or dream. If I'm being brutally honest, I didn't know that Houston would have the goods to maybe really contend for a playoff spot in the preseason, but I found myself middle of the year, kind of started to get a little hopeful, and now here we are having to tune in to Astros and A's tonight. Calvin, you mentioned it a moment ago. You want to talk about put up or shut up time? 3-game slate getting ready to get cranked up in Cleveland. Can I interest you in Tigers and Guardians beginning tonight at Progressive Field in Cleveland, Ohio?
Absolutely. And, I've got the AL wild card standings pulled up. The Houston Astros and the Cleveland Guardians are both 84 and 72. They are both 1 game back of the Boston Red Sox for the final AL wild card spot. And both of those are 4 back of the New York Yankees. So this last couple of days and maybe even a week of the regular season, we could be looking at teams like Boston and the Yankees that have been firmly in the playoff picture for a while. If the Yankees slip, we could potentially be looking at 2 entirely new teams in the playoffs.
Okay, now I'd not even really let that enter the realm of possibility in my brain, but thank you for doing so. I'm going to dare to dream a little bit because not only would that ensure the Astros get in, but it would be, from a what's the word I'm looking for? From a Schadenfreude standpoint, almost, so to speak, it would be fun to kind of see Boston and New York slide out, just to watch the MLB executives kind of lose their lunch there with 2 of the major market teams not being in. More on that as the week continues. Hey, speaking of which, Calvin, more on this story as you and David take the reins tomorrow. But MLB, it sounds like, has approved automated ball strike system for the 2026 season. David was kind of tipping us off that this might come down the pike earlier today. And then, boom, it's now officially been announced. And so I'm going to let you 2 guys kind of debate it and talk about it a little bit more tomorrow. But safe to say, the robot umps are here. The robot takeover has officially made its way to Major League Baseball.
Yeah, and this is something that I don't think, there's been a lot of players that have been outspoken about how much they don't like it. there was a video of Walker Bueller, I believe last week. He was talking about how he doesn't like it because he thinks that he said there's calls that veteran pitchers get around the plate that younger guys might not get, which I think is stupid. I think everybody should get the same ball strike call, but that's me. I don't play. I'm the armchair manager. But I think that the ABS system is something that's worked, pretty well in minor league baseball ever since they've started using it. And, I obviously the major league level is totally different than the minor league level. Those guys are a lot better. But so I guess we'll see next year how well this is going to work, if it does work.
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, Calvin and David Wilson will talk much more about ABS coming to the MLB level on tomorrow's episode of Main Street Sports Today. We've reached the top of the hour. Matter of fact, we're 1 minute past the top of the hour. What that means, folks, is on the other side of this timeout, our good friend Chip Walters will join us. We'll talk all things Blue Raiders after this as we kick off hour number 2 of Main Street Sports Today, presented as always by TOA of Columbia.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy at zioneagles.org or 931-388-7531. You can schedule your appointment to visit their beautiful campus. Again, zioneagles.org or 931-7531 to schedule your visit today.
Is your internet slowing you down? It's time for an upgrade. Whether you're at home, working from your home office, or at your business, it's time to unleash the speed you need with speeds up to 1 gig at CPWS for as low as $70 a month. Give us a call, 931-375-7777. Local service, local support, CPWS.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Second hour of Main Street Sports Today, presented by TOA of Columbia, is rolling right along. Alongside Calvin White, Wayne Neely sitting in the saddle here. Our producer, as always, is Mark Rogers. And as always, except for the few, and I mean few times when we don't, our good friend Chip Walters, the Blue Raider voice, joins us each and every single Tuesday, and he has yet again made his way on via StreamYard to these airwaves. Chip, good afternoon. How art thou?
Doing fine, recovering from busy homecoming weekend, but that's all part of it. But I'll mark it down today. What is it? September 23rd. First full day of fall was the first day that I wore a jacket for the fall. So I at least have had a pullover for the first time. The first time I walked out the door and said, need a little more than what I'd started with.
It's funny you say that because Calvin kicked off the show by tossing a little weather shout out in there. And he said, we got some rain, but when you get rain this time of the year, you get that nice little cool that comes with it. And I'm right there with you, Chip.
Well, and we had that Saturday night. It was, 90 plus degree day on Saturday for homecoming, and you get the football game started, and literally out of nowhere, you get lightning, and which caused a delay, which that was followed by a full-blown thunderstorm, and it lasted. The delay lasted 2 hours and 12 minutes, and I'll tell you, I was, to be honest, I mean, there was a nice crowd there, but I was stunned at the number of people that hung around after the lightning or the weather delay. But the thing was, that rain came through and it got really comfortable. And then, fans had an opportunity to see a crazy football game with a lot of points scored. And, there's some good things that happened. It didn't end up the way Middle wanted it to. Blue Raiders had the lead in the third quarter, but, they had a penalty that happened at an incredibly inopportune time that in my opinion, and talking to Coach Derek Mason, in his opinion as well, really changed the complete flow of the football game.
Absolutely. And Chip, it was funny, even though it didn't pan out this way, but I'm checking my phone Saturday night, didn't get a chance to make it over to Murfreesboro, and I was wanting to stay up for 5 minutes just to say I could watch the USC Michigan State game, which we know has been ballyhooed about starting at 10 p.m. And I was getting ready to turn to the wife and say, hey, we could make it down to Murfreesboro and catch the second half of the MTSU game. I looked over. She was already dead asleep. So fans could have made the trip out at a late hour and still enjoyed some Blue Raider football.
Yeah, we started back about 8:25, something like that, after we had played 6 minutes and 13 seconds, I think, because we came back with 8 minutes and 47 seconds left in the first quarter, and Middle scored on the second play after it came back. But it's funny you mentioned the Michigan State game. I walked in the house about 1 a.m. and I turned the TV on, and that game was on. And what is the first thing I see when I turn that game on? Omari Kelly catching the touchdown pass for Michigan State late in that football game. So, congrats to him. He's been playing well. But to go back to the game, Nick Vattiato he was a biscuit shy of a 300-yard game, 299 yards passing, which is his 26th 200-plus yard game, and spread the ball around for the second week in a row. I thought really spread the ball around. 7 different receivers caught passes, which we're seeing progress offensively. The Blue Raiders had 6 explosive plays in the ball game. They had 7 in the first 3 games combined. So we're seeing some chunk plays in there, but the game it had a lot of chunk plays on both sides. The downfall for Middle against Marshall, 12 total penalties for over 100 yards, and the one that I mentioned was and I will mention it was from I asked yesterday to confirm it was a Sunbelt crew calling the game in Murfreesboro, which is not unusual when you have a home-and-home series. Next year when Middle goes to Huntington, it'll be a Conference USA crew. But it was there were a couple of things that were a little odd. There were a couple of holding flags that were picked up on Marshall in the ball game. And then you had this leap. It was a leaping penalty was the call in the third quarter that really turned the game around. Middle was up 7, 28-21, and had stopped Marshall. They had a 4th and 5 at the Middle 40-yard line, and they had brought out the punt team. The play comes off, and they punt it and down it at the 3-yard line, but there's a flag, and it is on a Middle defender who they say tried to leap over the personal protector of the punter, which that leaping rule was put in for player safety a few years ago. But what it did, it gave Marshall the ball 1st and 10 at the 25, and they scored a few plays later, tie the game up, and end up getting the ball back and scoring again. Middle could have obviously gotten the ball back and scored themselves. But when that really turned the momentum around. Middle had all of the momentum with the lead. They had scored 14 straight points or 15 straight 15 straight to take the lead, 28-21, and then saw the penalty happen. They had stopped it. They were going to get the ball back, and so a lot of woulda, shoulda, couldas, but there are a lot of times a few handful of plays can make a big difference in a game. That was a huge one right there that turned the tide against Middle. Now you turn around and you face a very good dual threat quarterback at Kennesaw this weekend, and Kennesaw is off to a good start. They've got they're 2-2 so far on the year and beat Arkansas State last week. They gave a real scare to Wake Forest opening weekend, 10-9. But they're going to be a tough out down in Georgia. It'll be Middle's first trip to the Peach State since they played the number 3 ranked Bulldogs at the time back in 2018. But it'll be a Saturday early evening contest, 5 o'clock Central, 6 o'clock Eastern time, and right now, no lightning on the schedule or in the forecast. We'll hope to keep it that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chip, we've talked about him over the last couple of weeks, but it feels like Najee Cox and Nick Vadiato have kind of been the only noteworthy offensive players for MTSU to kind of look at and say, hey, they had a pretty good game. Najee Cox, 6 catches for 94 yards and a score the other night. How has he kind of separated himself to be Nick Vadiato's top target, kind of how Holden Willis has been over the last couple of years?
Well, he's a pretty good sized target. As a matter of fact, we had him on the radio show last night. I would add Ja'Kale Middlebrook into that list because Ja'Kale has had the last couple of games has had double-figure touches with running and receiving, and he's been pretty good as well. But Najee Cox has been the top receiver easily so far in the offense, and I'll go back to Nick Vadiato's preseason words when I asked him during a preseason presser. I said, who are you going to have to replace and be that person that's going to be what Holden Willis was a year ago? And he goes, that's going to be whoever decides to get open. And that's what Najee Cox has done better than anybody else, is he's gotten open. What we have seen over the last 2 weeks is we have seen Miles Butler now get more into the fold. Najee has 20 catches so far. He had 23 all of last season in junior college, but he's got 20 already this year. Miles Butler's up to 15 catches. Middlebrook has 15 catches out of the backfield. Amorian Walker in the last 2 weeks has really inserted himself, and he's the transfer from Michigan. Big target, has a lot of opportunity, a lot of upside. Same goes for Hunter Tipton, who is a senior transfer tight end. And Tipton caught a 2-point play the other night. He now has a total of 7 catches, and I think he's kind of developing. I'm not sure he has the speed, the combination of size and speed that Holden Willis had. He's bigger than Holden, but not quite as fast. He's more of a true tight end. He's not going to be that stretch tight end that Willis was, but he is, there are a lot of things you can do with a traditional tight end, and we saw Marshall, do a lot of it with their guy on Saturday night. So I think you're going to see more of that into the offense as we move forward, and this would be a good week for that when you open up conference play and you want to have all the weapons at your disposal that you can have.
Chip, put a real quick, Calvin, you go ahead. Sorry.
Chip, before the season started, when we were kind of looking at MTSU's schedule, a lot of people agreed that this was the most favorable schedule that they've had in a while. With conference play starting next week, obviously there are the teams that have been kind of the they've been hanging around the top of the conference for the last couple of years. Western Kentucky, Jacksonville State, all those teams. Is there a way that you see that Middle can still kind of turn it around and pick up a bunch of wins? I don't want to say a bunch, but pick up some wins in conference play.
Well, I mean, they the opportunities are going to be there, but I think you also, when you're talking about who's hanging around at the top of the conference right now, yeah, Western has a win. I think Delaware has been a bit of a surprise. They're 3-1 on the year. Kennesaw has maybe been a little better than advertised. Missouri State went in and won at Marshall a couple of weeks ago. So the two new members of the conference have been probably better than expected. So, while, that's why we play it out on paper in the preseason, and then you have to play it out in real life later on. But, the one thing I still agree about Middle on is that they've shown improvement every week. I think there's no question this past week, even in a loss to Marshall, it was easily the best offensive night of the season so far. Was it a full 60 minutes? No, because had they done something in the fourth quarter, you may have pulled off the win there. So they're still looking for the full 60-minute game from the offense, but they've continued to get better. They've had more weapons. We've started to see the defense get a couple of turnovers, and their third down numbers are getting better. But wasn't good enough to get the win the other night. But so it's a week by week process, and as it all starts this week, and we have the luxury of trying to look at the big picture, but they every football team around here, whether it's high school, college, or pro, they're all having to play a 1 week season and lay it all out there like they this week, and that's what Middle's looking at going into this one.
Chip, real two quick things on football before we transition here. Number one, I love the idea that, as bad as it's been in terms of your start, you got a brand new slate. And we talked about it in the preseason. You're hoping to obviously probably flip your record from what it is now, in terms of optimism coming in. But it's a brand new slate. And then number two, put a bow on us in terms of homecoming festivities, because we know that's obviously a big deal.
Well, it was busy a busy Friday and Saturday. I had the honor of being the master of ceremonies for 3 events leading up to the game on Saturday. On Friday afternoon, the National Alumni Association has their alumni awards. I emceed that. Friday night, we had the 50th induction of the Blue Raider Hall of Fame. We had Warren Kidd, Ann Dudley, and Garth Petrelli were there in person. We had 3 other inductees, including Kevin Byard, who were with us by video. We had done some work prior on the front end of that, but had a packed house in the Student Athlete Performance Center up in the SRM Club for that induction ceremony. Really nice. Huge crowd on Saturday morning for the homecoming parade. Got the opportunity to work with another Blue Raider alum, Forrest Sanders of News Channel 5, who only has 42 Emmys to his credit for his reporting.
That's it,
and which is just 42 ahead of me, and so he's had a good time, and outside of just the outcome of the football game. And what was crazy, like I said, there were a stunning number of people that hung around during the weather delay. And I will tell you, one of the highlights of that, I've seen videos surface here in the last couple of days. During the weather delay, fans and the bands, both teams had bands there, they all had to be down underneath in the concourse. Well, the bands started entertaining folks down on the concourse, and the MTSU alumni band just started playing their whole catalog. So everybody stayed entertained, and I know the concession stands did great business during the weather delay, but it's okay with me to not have weather delays, and that'll be the last Saturday home game until November. We'll have two midweek games coming up in October, and we'll talk about those as we cruise along, I guess.
Chip, you mentioned the bands, and that made me go down memory lane. It was good to know that the referees weren't getting involved. Wasn't that Marshall back in like 2013 when the officials were getting on the MTSU band? Way back in the day, I think I remember correctly. So good to know that everybody was on there up and up.
That's right. It's something like that, and even going back farther, back about 1983, we had a situation back in the old stadium when the track was still in there, and they used to bring in the homecoming floats. They would bring them in and park them on the track in the north end of the stadium. Well, again, about 1983, 84, somewhere right in there, somebody, because you could walk on the track from one side of the stadium to the other. That's how you got around. Well, somebody apparently walked by one of the floats, flicked a cigarette into it, and as you know, floats are made out of crepe paper, which is fairly flammable, and not only did it burn down the float, it caught the track on fire, and we had black smoke billowing up from the track, and had a fire truck come out on the football field to put the track out that had caught fire. So just an old college memory.
Yeah, just a good old fashioned college antics back in the day.
And I was in the press box the whole time, so I had nothing to do with it.
You're safe.
Chip, what game was it a couple of years ago when they had the truck with the T-shirt gun come out on the field at halftime, and the T-shirt truck flipped over in the end zone? You remember that?
It was like a golf cart with a flatbed on it or something, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was almost like the Sooner schooner turning over in the end zone. But if you go to football games long enough, you're going to see some things happen.
There's no doubt. I love the visual, of having to put the flames out there. Real quick, Chip, pick your poison here. Do we want to go hoops, or do we want to talk about soccer and CUSA season opening up?
We can we can do a quick hit on soccer and volleyball. Soccer got a 1-0 win over Jacksonville State on Sunday. They have now they opened up conference play for the first time in about 7 years with a win. So their good beginning of the season is continuing. Volleyball had a trip to Virginia Tech, got another win or two up there. They will open conference play this weekend. They'll be hosting Kennesaw. So that group has really been a very pleasant, somewhat surprise. And Coach Alexa Keckler in her first year has gotten them off to a very good start. Men's golf playing down in Sandestin. Right now they're in third. After one round, they'll have another round to play tomorrow. And the women's golf team finished 14th in the Mason Rudolph last weekend. But Isabella Johnson, who is from Murfreesboro, played at PCA, got her third top 25 finish so far in the fall season. And she has been right at the top of things. Abby Lee, who we have talked about on this show before, had been out with an injury, came back, and that was her first tournament. And so I expect good things out of them coming up. So with that being said, this is also the week where college basketball practices will begin. Mm-hmm. Not that they ever stop really anymore, but now you go from being able to work with your team for 4 hours per week. This week, it moves up to the 20-hour a week of practicing in games. And women's basketball started Monday, which was yesterday, with their first real practice. The men, I think, have one more 1 hour workout today and will have their first official practice either tomorrow or Thursday. But had a chance to watch both of them practice and work out. So with the women's team is going to be very, very young, but they are very, very talented. So they may, we'll see how quickly they can get them together. They're going to have to, because they've got a tough non-conference schedule, including games in the Murphy Center against Tennessee, Auburn, and Memphis. So all of those will be at home, which, that gives this young roster a little bit of a better chance as they try to get themselves together. The men's team, they have gone they had to go into the portal pretty deeply, had 9 new players this year, but a good core of returning players. I will tell you this: Middle has as talented a group of guards as I've seen in a while. This may be a bit of an undersized team as compared to a year ago. It may be more like the DeAndre Dishman teams, where you had a 6'9" post player instead of a 6'11" or 7-foot post player. But Jared Hall has been moved to the 5, a kid out of Lebanon. He's put on about 25 pounds of muscle, and at 6'9", he's putting up a strong case. He and Chris Loof are really having a fun competition to see who's going to be the starting 5 when it all gets said and done. But Javin Carter, kid out of Alcoa, who signed with Penn State out of high school, he's an absolute stud, and you're going to see a lot of fun things out of him. He's come in, and this group really works smart. They work hard, and I think they're going to be fun to watch when we get going here.
Jip, I'm going to whisper this, but yeah, I kind of it feels like a little optimism and a little excitement about men's basketball in particular. There's always that for women's, but it feels like men's basketball, a little mojo heading into the season.
Well, they're coming off a 22-win season into the NIT, bring back some good pieces, but had to go find some good pieces. Yeah. And I think, in this era of NIL and transfer portal, I think they feel like they've gotten pretty good value, in particular at the guard spots, and have kind of homegrown themselves a post player with kind of a rebirth of Jared Hall. And I really want to see him translate what I'm seeing on the practice floor with him onto the game floor.
Calvin, anything else?
The non-conference home schedule for men's basketball, it's or not home schedule, just the non-conference schedule in general. Got some really good opponents: Evansville, Michigan, Murray State, UAB, Belmont. That's
and
probably
Houston.
And Houston.
He left that one off on purpose. I think
the team that was in the national championship game last
year. Yeah, that's right.
But just kind of racking my brain a little bit. That's probably the best non-conference schedule that at least I can remember in the last couple of years. Just how do you think that schedule can kind of go about, getting men's basketball ready for conference play?
Well, I mean, they're going to be challenged. Obviously, you've got the Murray game is going to be in the Cayman Islands. You're going to have Murray, McNeese, and who's the third one?
George Washington.
You're going to play Belmont at home. You've got Evansville on the road. That's going to be, to me, one of the real, I think, a bellwether game. It's a Missouri Valley team on the road that you beat handily the last time you played them. You've got a November game, November 19th, I think, at Michigan, which is going to be, that's right before you go to the Cayman Islands. And then you will actually play a conference game on December 16th against Kennesaw to open up the conference game. And they moved that game from December 29th so they could get in the opportunity to play Houston. So the Houston and Michigan games those are going to be money games, which, in the new world that we live in, you've got to find ways and revenue streams. And normally Middle played either 0 or 1 buy games or money games. This year they're going to play 2, and it'll be my first trip to go to Michigan. The last time Middle played Michigan in basketball, they beat them. That was down in Birmingham, Alabama, when they had Glenn Rice and some guys back in the late 80s. But the trip to Houston, I mean, that's going to be something too, because that's going to be a team who's going to be a top 5 ranked team. I'm not sure how that game actually, when those games happen, they come about because of a connection somewhere. The Michigan game, it's easy to figure that one out. Dusty Mays, the head coach at Michigan now, formerly at FAU, he and Nick McDevitt are very close friends, and they needed an extra home game, and Middle needed an extra pay game, and that all worked out. So we'll be heading to Chrysler Arena on November 19th.
It's not every day that you can have Cumberland on December 21st, and then 8 days later you got Houston on your schedule. So
that's right.
Showing off the diversity there.
I'll call them UCLA, the University of Cumberland in the Lebanon area, UCLA. So we'll go with that. But yeah, you got Cumberland. You also have Middle plays 2 games early. One against who's the first one there, Calvin? It's Milligan, and then Webster. I wonder how tall Webster's team is. We'll figure that out. The one of those 2 games, either Milligan or Webster, I can't remember which is going to be the elementary school game to where it's played during the day in front of all the Rutherford County school kids, and which is a blast to go to. That and the women's game. Against they'll play a game in front of the city school, Murfreesboro City School kids, and that's become a great tradition at MTSU with the atmosphere that really gets basketball season off to a great start.
Should be fun, and hoops are right around the corner.
Yeah, absolutely.
Calvin, hit us with the Webster.
Webster has 4 players that are taller than 6'5".
Do they really?
Yeah.
Didn't see that coming.
Hey, I dropped it in the private chat, but I mean, Webster was a school, Calvin and Chip, that sent me stuff when I was a striking young high school senior at Giles County circa 2005, and I got these nice fancy brochures, and then I was like, where the heck is this school? Is this a real school? Not only is it a real school, apparently they're thriving. They're able to come to Murfreesboro and play games this year, so props to Webster.
We'll look forward to them.
I look forward to your research on that particular broadcast as we get
closer
and closer. Chip Walters, he's the Blue Raider voice, joining us each and every single Tuesday, talking all things Blue Raiders. Chip, best of luck down in Kennesaw this week, and we will see you next Tuesday.
Well, we're going to make a good trip out of it. Going to go see the Braves and Pirates on Friday night, and then a little Blue Raiders in Kennesaw on Saturday night. So we'll be on the air at 3:30, kickoff at 5 o'clock. You can catch it on our radio stations, but also on the Blue Raider app. That's one easy way to do it.
Good stuff.
If you break the Brave streak, you're not allowed to go back.
I'll do it.
We're going to hold you to that. Chip Walters.
Be watching for me on TV. Row 1, just past the third base dugout. Row 1.
We will watch out for you.
We're going to be looking, and you better not steal any foul balls from any young women or children. That's all I'm gonna say,
I will be very generous if I happen to not get out of the way of a foul ball and have to catch it. So
okay, perfect, good stuff. Chip, we'll see you next week, brother.
See you.
Thank you very much. Chip Walters, the MTSU Blue Raider voice, joins us each and every single Tuesday, bringing all the goods as always. I had repressed the memories of that 1983 or 84 Michigan loss to MTSU, Calvin. Didn't even know about that one, actually. But I did find it fascinating. They got Cumberland coming to the Murphy Center on Sunday, and then the following Monday, they go down to Houston to take on, a team that was in the national championship game. The schedule is packed. And that Michigan game is... what day of the week? That's on a Wednesday. That could be a tough sell, but hey, I'm off from this show on Wednesday, Calvin. Maybe I'll get a wild hair and go up there and see my Blue Raiders, but also see my Wolverines. Should be fun. Good stuff with Chip, as always. Folks, we need to kick it to a timeout because when we come back, the run of show has been dramatically altered. Things are happening all across the place. And, yeah, the grab bag has been ripped to pieces. But don't worry, we're going to put it back together on the other side of this timeout. Calvin and I will dip our toes into all things grab bag related after this, right here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by TOA of Columbia.
Deep in a forest at Nashville Zoo, new creatures here for you to view. Phantoms graced in black and white swing high in trees of dappled light. In rocky crags, tall and steep, small antelopes with nimble feet. A wise old man with beard of white, a sentry perched on stony height. Amidst it all, a hunter lies, with coat of gold and steely eyes. A new adventure just for you. Leopard Forest at Nashville Zoo. Open now.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily, as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Hopping back into hour number 2 of Main Street Sports Today, where we are presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Alongside Calvin White, Wayne Ely saying hello. Our producer, Mark Rogers, making the magic happen behind the glass. Calvin, a lot has transpired since the show kicked off at 2 o'clock. A lot has transpired since we had Chip Walters join us at the top of the 3 o'clock hour. Couple of Titans news and notes, and we will start with a couple of, we'll start with the transaction. Titans have now announced a trade as cornerback Jarvis Brownlee Jr. He's on the move, headed to my beloved New York Jets, says the guy wearing the Lions shirt and wore a Buccaneers shirt on the show yesterday. But the Jets are picking up Brownlee as part of a late-round pick swap. Jarvis Brownlee was drafted by the Titans last year, and just over a year later, Calvin, he is on the move.
Yeah, it's... Unfortunately, that's probably a scenario for the Titans where, try to move as many people as you can right now and kind of build up draft assets just in case there is a scenario where Brian Callahan gets fired in the next couple of weeks. Everybody's kind of, assuming that if they go down to Houston and just get the absolute brakes beat off of them, that's going to be the one where if you do decide to fire Brian Callahan, that's going to be the one. But kind of the general consensus is if they don't do it after the Houston game, if they lose, then you kind of let Brian Callahan stick it out the rest of the year. But I'm kind of in the boat of this thing isn't really working, it doesn't look like. So just kind of get a head start on trading and firing everybody.
Yeah, if you're the Titans, this is certainly a situation you didn't want to find yourself in. And I don't know that we're opening the door to full-blown fire sale just yet. But yeah, Calvin, we were kind of teetering right on the edge of that cliff. And, Jarvis Brownlee Jr., he was a late pick. And you're going to be moving him. Official terms say the Titans will get a 6th-rounder from the Jets. The Jets will get Brownlee and a 7th-rounder. So in some regards, you're kind of just giving him away for free. you would like to think or hope that maybe you could scrap a little value out of that late round pick, but we've obviously seen that doesn't happen a ton. So with all that being said, the question kind of becomes why the move, and it does make you wonder if there are not more moves to be had, and unfortunately, we find ourselves in this spot. We saw a few moves from the Titans last year, not too far into the season like we are right now, Calvin, where, hey, we pretty much realize things aren't going to go the way they're supposed to go, and we're just going to try and stockpile draft assets for the future. Man, it is depressing to think about already being in that situation again, but especially if a head coaching change is made in the next 2 to 3 weeks, if not this week, perhaps, get a start on it.
Yeah, and I think if it does come to that, I think everybody not named Cam Ward is on the trade block, potentially. There's a bunch of veterans on the team like Jeffrey Simmons and Calvin Ridley that just, aren't producing right now. Calvin Ridley can't catch the football. I heard somebody say yesterday, if it does come to that, the Titans might make a call to Jerry Jones and see if they want the running back back, see if they can get Tony Pollard back. But it's just a scenario where the Titans are somehow worse than last year, and it doesn't look like it's getting any better.
Yeah, and the one thing, and even talking with some folks who are not the most in-depth football fans, we'll call them, they even made the comment at dinner Sunday, and they said, man, they're not any better, and it's just, no is the easy answer. There's a number of different ways you can look at this. The schedule has been tough or challenging to start the season. You've dealt with some injuries, but yeah, you cannot really point, as Steve Lehman from News Channel 5 told us yesterday, you really can't point outside of Ward, perhaps, to one area where you feel good or you feel like you've seen some kind of improvement, except special teams, which Steve pointed out yesterday. But that was only because they were so bad last year that any improvement is pretty noticeable. So Titans are in a weird spot. They've made a trade, and again, that Jarvis Brownlee Jr. is on the move for a late-round pick swap, a 7th-round pick, and Brownlee to the Jets, a 6th-rounder coming back to the Titans. Calvin, that was not the Titans news that we were planning to open the show with. We were opening the show with, some coaching news. Because news coming out early this morning that the team has announced that quarterbacks coach Bo Hardegree is now going to be your new play caller. So Brian Callahan is still the head coach, but I love this headline or this lead here from Pro Football Talk. Brian Callahan has not been fired, but he has already fired himself in a sense in terms of the offensive play caller, as he will hand that over. And Calvin, we've seen this in college and professional. When you kind of hand the play calling duties over, it kind of feels sometimes more often than not like the first step toward your eventual turning in everything at a franchise.
Yeah, and even when Brian Callahan was hired, that was kind of the big headline, was that even in Cincinnati, he had never called plays before.
Mm-hmm.
And, kind of learning how to do that along with learning how to do everything as a head coach at once, I would imagine is a very stressful and strenuous process. So maybe kind of taking some of the load off of him, if he does get to keep his job, maybe this can kind of help him, kind of straighten out some of those game day management things that he's had trouble with over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and that's the way you kind of almost have to look at it. Hadn't really heard a ton of buzz or heard a ton of chatter about, hey, this should have been done weeks ago, or this. It feels like it's basically been fire Callahan or bust. We haven't really heard, at least I haven't, a ton of calls for why is this guy still calling the plays? But, it has not been good. And, I know the offensive line has had its injury issues, and I know some, things have not gone your way. You're dealing with a rookie quarterback, but the offense has flat out been woeful. And the Titans went 3-14 in the first season under Callahan, calling all those plays. Didn't exactly light the world on fire offensively then. They certainly aren't lighting the world on fire offensively now. So not good would be the best, perhaps, way to describe the vibes right now around the Titans. And they got a big divisional game. Calvin, this is basically a loser leaves town game in a sense. Both teams are already 0-3, but Texans, Titans, the loser of this game, you're already pretty much out of any realistic playoff discussion. But if you lose this game, not only are you further out of that picture, but you're also just really kind of on a sinking ship type mentality.
Yeah, this is the one game where if you're a Titans or a Texans staffer, employee, fan, whatever, you cannot lose it. And, I heard I was listening to another radio show, and they said that, Amy Adams Strunk absolutely hates to lose to the Houston Texans. So if you go in there and just get absolutely blown off the planet by the 0-3 Houston Texans, then they might not even let Brian Callahan back on the plane.
Yeah, and we have seen, an embarrassing loss. Looking at the Philadelphia Eagles loss a couple of seasons ago, you lose that one in embarrassing fashion, and quick moves can be made. And if you're 0-4 with a bad loss to your arch rival in a rivalry that kind of goes beyond football, as Mo and I kind of tipped our toes into those waters yesterday, that's one you desperately need to win for a variety of reasons if you are head coach Brian Callahan. Meanwhile, more breaking news. College football, this comes from, my co-host, Calvin, dropping this into the run of show while we were on with Chip. Calvin, we got big news out of Oklahoma, and it's not good. Bring us up to speed.
Yeah, John Mateer, the quarterback at Oklahoma, I had a tweet pulled up from Pete Thamel. He has an injury with his thumb. He's going to require surgery, and he's going to be out at least a month. So only about 3 or 4 games, but that's a big blow to Oklahoma and to the guy that at this point in the season was is probably the Heisman favorite at this point in the season right now.
Yeah, that is a big, big blow. And, just talking with some friends earlier today, there's talk about, there's whispers among, this is my friends speculating here, but they're like, man, Ben Arbuckle's been calling such an electric offense for Oklahoma. So much chatter about, who maybe gets a nod at Florida if and when Billy Napier gets fired later this year. And they were like, well, maybe Arbuckle gets the call. And, it's kind of hard to argue with the logic the way it looked. But this is a big loss and a huge stretch for OU. They got Kent State. They're on a bye this week. Then they got Kent State at home. Chalk that to an easy dub. But based on that timeline you just gave me, Calvin, Red River rivalry, October 11th, Texas and Oklahoma, sounds like they're going to be without Mateer.
Yeah, looking at this tweet from ESPN, says he will undergo surgery Wednesday to address a right hand injury he sustained against Auburn. That's from head coach Brent Venables. Says he could miss 3 or more weeks. So not going to miss the whole season, but obviously in this day and age of the college football playoff, 3 or 4 weeks could make or break your season if Oklahoma manages to drop some of those games.
Absolutely. And, it's funny because we had Michael Felder on the show last week, and Mo mentioned to him, what about sophomore Michael Hawkins Jr.? Mo asked, why is he still there in this day where everybody kind of leaves and tries to start as soon as possible? And Felder kind of just chalked it up to, hey, he just likes the vibes, and he's just kind of waiting, and Mateer is going to graduate, and, Hawkins will kind of slide right in. Well, going to have a chance to slide right in. They got a guy coming in Hawkins Jr., with some chops, with some experience. And again, they got Kent State, Texas, at South Carolina, at Ole Miss, home to Ole Miss, and then at Tennessee, maybe all in that timetable that Mateer is out. The other interesting thing is the Heisman odds will certainly figure to be adjusted because Mateer, as you mentioned, Calvin, was kind of your front runner there. So big breaking news there. Our entire grab bag, like I said, was kind of thrown up and ripped up in flames there just a minute ago with 3 different big stories. We had a couple Titans Nuggets, and we had that. But Calvin, one thing I refuse to back down from, I want to end the grab bag on a positive note. I got to give credit to the Colorado Buffaloes. It's been a up and down season already, and they're 2-2. They got a big win over Wyoming. But perhaps most importantly, we got to see our very first look at Ralphie 7. Here she is. Ralphie making her debut right here, Calvin. And Ralphie, for those, we talked about it a couple weeks ago. Ralphie 6, and perhaps as I heard a few different podcasters describe it, the most relatable announcement of all time. Ralphie 6, they said, had, quote, lost her desire to run, which we really all kind of embraced a little bit and chuckled about at the time. But Ralphie 7, showing off the wheels there in her debut, looks pretty good, and it helped Colorado pick up a nice win over Wyoming on Saturday.
Yeah, one of the better live mascots in sports. Kind of up there in the same tier as Bevo from Texas and Uga from Georgia. But good to see Ralphie out there. And, kind of how LSU has Mike the Tiger. Colorado's got the Buffalo. It's always cool to see teams have a live mascot when it's not an animal that you would expect to be in an environment like that, especially like a live buffalo.
Yeah, and, we talked about it back before their Week 1 game versus Georgia Tech, which they ended up losing. I just want to point that out. But Ralphie, they were in between Ralphie's, Calvin. Ralphie 6 had just retired. They hadn't had Ralphie 7 prepared just yet, so they didn't have the run out. They lose that game to Georgia Tech, 27-20. Since then, though, got the win versus Delaware without Ralphie, but, Delaware, first-year FBS school. We'll chalk that up for Colorado. But they're 1-0 with the new Ralphie, so congrats to Ralphie and the Buffaloes, who are now 2-2 after a 37-20 win versus Wyoming. We have a few other grab bag items that we're going to push toward tomorrow, and we will take a quick time out because on the other side of this break, we will cap our show today. Calvin and I will give you our top 5 non-college football activities in the fall. It's going to be a fun segment. It's our final segment brought to you by Columbia Power and Water System, and it will be Top 5 Tuesday. And producer Mark says, let's skip that last block. So let's roll right on into it. I love when I have multiple tabs open, folks. But thanks to producer Mark. Before we get into it, are you tired of buffering and slow internet speeds? Well, then upgrade your life with Columbia Power and Water System Internet. Get lightning fast internet where you can have multiple tabs open on your browser and miss a note from producer Mark. With speeds up to an incredible 1 gig, you can stream, game, and work seamlessly, all for $70 a month. And if you're looking for local service and local support, you can visit cpws.com or you can call 931-375-7777 and tell them your friends at Main Street Sports Today sent you. Here we are, folks. Top 5. Calvin, start us off. Give us your number 1 pick for your non-college football favorite activities in the fall. Last weekend, not the best slate. So if you wanted to buy some brownie points or you wanted to score some, you could go out and maybe do some of these activities.
Yeah, it's we're not, we're closer to that point now, but when we get kind of, at the beginning of the fall season, you can't really do this. But at this time of year, it's we're getting pretty close to people decorating their houses for Halloween. Go out and buy you some spooky materials and spookify your house for Halloween.
That is a good one. We have yet to do that just yet, but it is imminent here as far as getting things ready for Halloween. That is a great pick. Number 2, or my number 1, I'm going to go in a similar vein, and I've already got the text. It won't be this weekend, but it'll be coming up soon. I refuse to back down because we got too many good games this weekend. But the pumpkin patch is on the list. And if you're in any sort of relationship, your significant other, there's 2 types of people. One that wants to go to the pumpkin patch and one that does not. I don't mind a pumpkin patch, but it's on my number 1 list because it happens almost every year.
Yeah, and that was going to be my next pick as well. We're kind of in the same boat. I'm not really a huge fan of them, but, sometimes we make sacrifices to go. If any of our viewers have good pumpkin patch recommendations, drop them in the comments for me and Wade.
Now you're talking. Yeah, help us help ourselves, I suppose, with that. Number 2 for me, we do this more in the summertime, but I do enjoy it when we can pull it off in the fall. We did this the opening weekend, actually, of college football. But camping, give us an overnight trip. East Tennessee in particular, so many good spots to go camping over there. Love a good camping trip, kind of just unplug a little bit. That way if your team loses, Calvin, even if it's to a team you're supposed to beat, it's kind of almost like it really didn't even happen when you unplug like that. So I'm going camping with my number 2 pick.
Yeah, can't say I've ever been camping, honestly. It's been on somewhat of a bucket list for a while. but hoping to get to that eventually.
Yeah.
But my number 3 pick is going to be a fall festival. You can't find these everywhere, but in Lebanon where I grew up, they had a little fall festival during October. You could kind of walk around and get all your Halloween needs, and it was kind of like a little mini fair. You had a bunch of people with their different booths set up and stuff, and you can get all your cool knickknacks that you want. I'm going fall festival, pick number 3.
Electric pick there. That's kind of the cousin of the pumpkin patch a little bit, Oktoberfest, festivals, things of that nature. You got a lot of different cool stuff to get into. I'm with you there. My number 3, I'm torn on a couple, but I'm going to go with this one for number 3. Give me kind of a fire pit / backyard barbecue. But without the games, I still want to invite my friends, and the significant other may say, hey, this is more of a get-together, not a football watching endeavor. But you can still sneak in and watch a game if you need to for just a little bit. But I love a fire pit this time of the year. Maybe even throw a projector up and watch a movie in the backyard. That's always a good hit as well. That's my number 3.
Yeah, I had that on my list as well, but it was not my next pick. My next pick is going to be the farmer's market. Kind of in the same boat as that fall festival, but it's a place where you can go and get maybe some homemade snacks, some homemade goodies like treats and cookies and stuff like that. Can still find your knickknacks and things that you can find at the fall festival, but it's just one of those things that makes you feel like fall is here.
Yep, that is as good a pick as you could pull. Number 4 for me. This feels like cheating a little bit, and this is one of those things I always kind of say I want to do, but I really don't even end up doing it as much, but a nap on a Saturday. Usually if I'm in a spot where I can nap, I'm probably going to have at least one eye kind of open, on college football. But if I could tuck away for at least a little bit, give me like a 90-minute nap on a Saturday, wake up, feel rejuvenated, maybe after going to a fall festival or before. But something like that. Give me a little nap for a Saturday, and I'm going to be A-okay.
Yeah, those naps are really good if the Saturday morning slate of the games aren't as good and you want to have
now you're talking.
Have some fresh energy for the nightcap. But my 4th pick, I'm going to say go on a walk or a hike. It's that part in the year where, it's not 100 degrees outside and we can stand to be outside for longer than 10 minutes at a time. Around this time of the year is when the leaves start falling off the trees and things like that. And it looks a lot better outside. So nice little walk is going to be my number 4 pick.
Hey, I'm with you. And this is sneaky related to the walk. I don't get to do this as much, but my favorite time by far to be out on the golf course is around this time of the year. If I could randomly find a bud, or I could randomly, sneak away and sneak in 9 holes on a Saturday where it's in the 70s, or if you go early, even a little bit cooler than that, that is my favorite time to be out on the golf course. Don't happen as much as I'd like, but if you can give me a Saturday on the links when the games aren't really that great, I'm all about it.
Absolutely, and golf is miserable. As much as I love golf is miserable when it's above like 85 degrees outside.
Mm-hmm.
You start sweating everywhere, and it's already a game where you have to have intense focus. It's hard to focus when the sweat's in your eye and the club's slipping out of your hands and things like that. The balls start spraying everywhere. You got to open a new case of balls every 2 holes. But my number 5 pick is going to be the bonfire. Kind of along with the walk, it's that time of year where it's finally somewhat cool enough to even consider having one. You can have your friends over, can grill out if you want to because it's still warm enough to do that. But nice little bonfire on a football Saturday or Sunday.
I love that. Give me a s'more any day of the week, but really give me a s'more this time of the year. That is pretty good. Producer Mark didn't produce a top 5, but he said he likes to get his kayak out This is about the last little weekend or two where you can do it before the water starts getting too cool. But I'm with you there, producer Mark. What a wild show that it has been, folks. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Calvin and David will be back. If you thought today was wild, buckle up. Tomorrow is officially Wild and Wacky Wednesday. They will be your hosts. We will see you next time. Thanks again for tuning in to Main Street Sports Today, presented by TOA of Columbia. Have a good Tuesday.